Welcome to the Talking HealthTech podcast. My name is Peter Birch. Today on the show, I'm joined by Viti Handyside and Dennis Rausch from Dedalus. G'day team, how are we going?
Very good.
All fine.
It's great to have you here. Love to have a conversation that spans international waters, getting perspective from a global view and what that means locally on important topics. And today we're really looking at the importance of structured data. And I know in healthcare, generally, we might look at that and almost take it as a given, but often it's a topic that we might not really understand the full breadth and importance of it, and I guess the current landscape of it too. So to bring my friends from Dedalus on to have a conversation on the show for the benefit of the audience is a great honor today. Firstly, Viti, I know we've done content in the past on the Talking HealthTech podcast through various platforms, so I'll come to you in a sec. But Dennis, did you want to give a bit more context about yourself? Introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, very much. My name is Dennis Rausch. I'm from Germany. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Dedalus, which is a global company. We have business activities actually around the globe. And my role is really to provide clinical oversight and actually to look at all things clinical. Personally, my main motivation is to bridge the gap between the technicians and engineers and the clinicians in the field, where we know that this is not easily done. And we have a lot of, history in health IT where we see that the solutions are not really fitting the needs of the clinicians. So I want to make this better, and the company is poised to support me in this. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, let's make it happen, indeed. And Viti, what about yourself? Just as a reminder for who you are, for those unfamiliar.
Hello, everybody. As Peter said, I've been on these podcasts previously. I am the ORBIS Country Product Manager, which essentially means that I work with Dennis and the clinical team developing the Dedalus electronic medical record. So it's my job really, because ORBIS is a global product, to bring the requirements of our region, Australia and New Zealand, to the global team and make sure that the development that's done and the way that the product is regionalised is appropriate for the clinicians working in our area.
Yeah, thank you. Dennis, to kick us off, if I think about the role that structured data plays in healthcare, because some might take a view that the importance of having the data right is so that, all the information fits nicely into little boxes, and then after patients have been seen, things can be billed properly, or we can run some nice, aggregated reports. But help me understand a little bit more about how you see the importance of structured data going beyond just making sure things are tidy, but driving better patient outcomes and doing things that are really important in healthcare.
Yeah, I think what you already mentioned are some of the obvious benefits that people look at. But I think that the main magic actually is that it allows the machine to understand what has happened. And even in the days of AI, where you would say unstructured data is just as good as structured data, we know the reliability of the data is important, especially if we work with clinical data and if you want to have clinical insights and outcomes reported. So in order to have reliable and high quality clinical decision support or population analysis or even life science research, you really need good input data. And this to provide this in the system is not easy to do because, as we know, it's not fun to enter a detailed and structured data set into a screen that has been built with, let's say, 50 different boxes where you have to skip from box to box and put numbers and text and whatever. And probably that is not even fitting the needs for the information that you have in your mind and that you want to drop off into the system. So that's quite tedious. And I think if we are honest to ourselves, we've seen in the past that it is, in many cases, users are cutting corners and they use the easy way out of that situation. So they might use a command field to actually put all the interesting information and put just some stuff into the mandatory field so they can save the form. And with this, we are in a situation where we really have to find out how can we attract users to use the system in a way that we get machine readable and reliable content, if possible, in the first place, in a very high quality.
Yeah, and Viti, I've seen it many a time from a patient perspective, and even when in my time in an outpatient clinic point of view, people almost get trained at whatever system they're using. If there's busy clinicians and the EMR or practice management system isn't supporting them in their role, people almost rote learn how to go like cancel, or put a dot in this field and this. It's almost like we're playing the game just in order to get through it. But obviously those fields were created for a reason, I guess, in the first place. But if it means someone can't actually use it to get a job done or isn't willing to, that's kind of a challenge. So it's a tricky one from a product point of view.
Yeah, very much so. And so from our product perspective, the key thing for product managers and for people who are implementing these systems is to really make sure that you do a couple of important steps. So you engage the clinicians is the most important thing, I think. If the structured data is embedded in the natural workflow, then it doesn't feel like it's an add-on. It doesn't feel like it's an extra task. So it can help the clinicians to sort of move through those processes quickly, because we all in a business clinical environment have a lot of things to get done, but it means that we capture the data effectively. And the other thing I think that's really important is to use structured data appropriately. So clinicians are very used to using kind of free text or conversational type of notes. There's a place for those, but we also need to help them to understand there's a place for structured data. So conversational notes are great if you're, say, for example, doing a mental health assessment and nuance is really important. But if you're doing a nursing care plan or, a discharge summary, it's where we really need structured data in place so that we can capture the information that we need to, share it downstream with other systems, and make sure, as you've said, things like billing and other processes like that can be performed correctly.
Well, Dennis, I think about just what you said too earlier in your kind of intro and picturing and putting it in my own kind of view. Sometimes it feels like for a clinician, it's like I'm doing this because I have to. Like I've got to do the patient engagement and I have to do this to keep the computer happy or the system, the boss, whatever, someone else happy. But I guess as well, if you're doing it right, by having good structured data in there in the first place, by entering it, then kind of pays dividends in the future, right? I imagine with this emerging technology piece, and if you're doing it in a good kind of EMR or whatever, then hopefully information that good information that goes in can then form kind of more interesting and useful insights that hopefully pay off over time. And am I kind of on the right direction there?
Absolutely. I believe that in the end, if we look at today's situation, we still have a lot of the thinking and mind work of the physicians specifically, but also other clinicians going on in front of the computer. So they might drop off some information that is sort of a sketch of what they think and what they do. But most of things happen outside of the system. And that is also why the system is sometimes perceived as being stupid, because it doesn't really understand what the physician is actually up to currently, because the information is not shared. So I think it's a hen and egg problem to some end. And if we manage to get to incentivize the physician to add or to share more information with us, then the system can be smarter and can support the physician better. And this will, again, motivate the physician to add more data and work with better data, input data than they used to. And I think it's also one point that Viti mentioned, conversational and free text entry. I think we have to be a little bit humble. We have to accept that this is the way that physicians think and communicate in many cases, specifically also in verbal world. And I think the new technologies, they enable us with the next generation of EMRs that we are also currently rolling out to accept this and to provide features that actually can bring this information into a structured way. So it's not the person in front of the computer who has to sort of deconstruct free text into elements, but it's going to be the smart system that is doing that for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to come to that concept of, I guess, next generation EMR in a moment, because that's interesting in itself. But yeah, I guess I reflect on it too, Viti. It's we don't need a us and them kind of approach to this problem. You know, the technology side and the clinician side, and the vendor, the technologist saying, oh, well, if only the clinicians use the system better, then it would be good. And then the clinicians like, well, if only they understood that. That's just not how things work in here. I think by having that collaborative approach, and ultimately it means then that patients receive better care because that they can be seen through faster and ultimately reduce risk and things, then that's got to be a good thing. So we do need that collaborative approach to product, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's about communicating why structured data is important to the clinician, but also communicating to people like me who and Dennis, who are making decisions about product and how EMRs are being developed, to understand the challenges of clinicians. And fortunately, both Dennis and I are clinicians, so we have a bit of an inside understanding of that. But for our colleagues who are still in the clinical practice environment, we need to show them benefits, and we need to show them those benefits early on so that they engage with it. So things like, showing how structured data can decrease duplicate testing. Right. If you decrease duplicate testing, it means that you can get your results faster. That's something that a clinician can actually look at and go, hey, that's good for me, saves me time, and actually makes my work easier.
Yeah. Help me understand too, like what, and I might go to Viti first, and then I'll understand from Dennis from a broader vision point of view in different regions too. But I don't actually know what you'd like. To me, an EMR might be, you've got a bunch of fields, you've got information to put in. Sometimes it's a drop down, and there's different directories it pulls from. Some fields are free text, and it's a database. I'm sure there's much more to it, but like, what else can you do other than, I guess, move fields to be in the right spot, not have duplicate fields, and make sure you don't have too many clicks? Like, there's got to be more than that, right?
There is, and there's technology changes that are coming along, and Dennis is probably actually the best person to talk about, that from the global perspective.
Yeah, I think the magic is all around better understanding the context and the situation of the user. Because if you're working with a system that does not have any understanding of that, you will be very often confronted with stupid proposals what you could do, and probably value sets, lists that drop down when you open the box, that start with things that absolutely have no reason to be here in your situation. So you might be treating a kid in an emergency department, and you drop down the diagnosis list, and you get some geriatric diagnosis at the top because they start with A. That's absolutely not helpful. And the other part is to pick up the workflow and to understand where is that person in the regular workup of such a situation, and provide dynamic offerings. For instance, to say, okay, you've now assessed the patient, you wrote down your suspected diagnosis. So here you go, 3 order sets that might fit the situation to immediately start treatment. Or do you want to start this pathway now because the patient would qualify? And thinking this further, it could even be like integrating life sciences and secondary use into that situation, where you would say, and by the way, the patient is also qualifying for that study that is run by your colleague. So do you want to register? And you just click the button and it's done. And that's an important piece. These things have to be actionable. So decision support today is very often that it tells you, okay, this would be the right way to do. And then you have to go back to your system and manually implement the recommendations. And I believe it's really important that instead you should be in a one-click mode where you say, yes, I like that idea. Let's apply it to the patient, and that's it.
And there's a great vision, but I guess it's not possible, right? That the system is not going to know unless that the data is appropriately organized and you've got the right intelligence behind it in order to put that up. Because that's definitely not a set and forget type thing. It's not like you're going to create a bunch of rules once in the back end of an EMR and say, if it's a child, then don't show these. There's a little bit more nuance to it that requires that good information behind it.
I would say it's amazing how much you can do with very little information if you just consume it. So of course, we can think about very advanced things where AI would understand the patterns of usage and be very or able to very detailedly identify the situation. But even if you just look what I just said, so the context, how the user is registered with the system, time of day, location of the workstation or the user, type of patient, and the medical information that already has been shared. That helps you to sort of filter out a lot of stuff that might not make sense for that person. And then you end up with selection list maybe of 10 items or 20, but not 500. Yeah. And we've done proof of concepts of this in our Italian EMR, and that worked very well. So users were really taken away by this perceived intelligence of the system with very simple means. Yeah.
Interesting. And I think about why we would do this, and it seems, we've identified a few of those obvious key benefits, Viti being around getting that buy-in of the clinicians and not burning too much time in clicking through, which means that better utilization of the system means better data. But it kind of has trickle effects, right? If we get the structured data right, then there's multiple benefits for the system and various stakeholders involved.
Yeah, and look, from the clinician's point of view, they're fairly obvious, the types of benefits we're talking about. It helps them with their clinical decision making. If I've got structured data there that can help me to identify, sets of information like vitals and symptoms that can trigger alerts for potential diagnoses. And then from that, as Dennis said, then it can say to you, oh, look, here are the set of diagnostic tests that you do on the treatment options that you can pursue. Oh, and by the way, we're also reducing your errors, so your patient safety is coming along. That's fantastic. But it also helps with things outside of that initial patient interaction. It helps me communicate more clearly to my colleagues inside and outside the hospital about what's going on with my patient. So if I say pneumonia, if I've got structured data that gives them more, that we have a defined definition for, then suddenly everybody knows what we're talking about and we're all on the same page. So there's not that backward and forward communication that can sometimes come from free text notes when we think we've been clear, but somebody else doesn't understand what we mean. And that goes into the admin side of things too, around clinical coding, around, looking at lengths of stay and how we manage those for given diagnoses. All of those sorts of things have knock-on effects, and it really does benefit everybody in the hospital ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. And I think about some of the, Dennis, you got us excited for a second there on some of the more advanced AI tools and things that could be utilized. Give me a bit of a picture on what the potential is then, and some of the, we're seeing in the ecosystem more broadly the use of artificial intelligence in a number of ways, and not just waiting for someone to type it into an EMR, but being able to capture voice. Talk me through how you're thinking about some future technology in this space.
Obviously, big thing in health IT these days is ambient AI. So people just do their work. That's the fantasy. And somehow by magic, the record is being filled with appropriate data and really great data. And it works to some extent. But I also have to put some water in the wine, because we see that AI is not everything. So I'm quite skeptical about the proposition that AI will take over completely and you will have just a Google-like entry box and that's it, or speech interface, because some situations, they're actually not good. You don't want to issue voice commands while you're talking with the patient. That is alien to the patient. The patient thinks, what did you mean with that? You just said, okay, bring up the image, whatever. Yeah. And so it's a good idea. And I think it will also evolve into a situation where it will be very proficient and very helpful. But I think the combination of things is important. So what I figure is you're meeting the patient. Of course, you get a pre-populated record, because we get the structured data stored in a nationwide, maybe Europe-wide, maybe worldwide one of these days, data repository where we have atomic data and not documents, PDFs, but really the individual data points. You get it pre-populated in your record. the patient comes to you voicing their current complaints. You do the talking and the initial assessment, the ambient speech AI is recording into the record, into the right places, suggests the final report to you, and you have to validate. I think we will go a long time with this validation because of the criticality of the data. We cannot just hope that the AI has not been hallucinating or misunderstanding. And then with this data, all the smart background stuff starts. So the CDS, the pathways, they can all move along and be selected for the patient, suggested to the clinical end user who will then go through it. You can also use the AI to update the record, the previous record. So I think it should not be a manual task to terminate a pregnancy in the record if it's 2 years ago and the patient has not been seen by a healthcare provider in the meantime. Yeah, so that should be something that the AI can do. And obviously, as Viti said, the medical chores, as I call them, so writing the letter, making sure that every data for administrative and billing purpose is there, and that stuff should all be automated. So in the end, you can really concentrate on trying to get the best clinical setup for your patient, and the rest is sort of auto-generated, and what you have to do is to review and sign off.
Yeah. And Viti, these types of issues to address and utilizing some technologies, I guess it's relevant wherever you are in the world, but I'd love to get your take on, I guess, where Australia's at right now, and I get maybe that appetite for the use of some of these technologies, or even the need, and where you see the use of this kind of best being applied in the Australian landscape or within our region.
I think in comparison to, because obviously we get feedback from the global business, in comparison to places like Europe, US, Australia's market and our position as far as consuming AI and actually having it in place and using it is reasonably young. We have a very strong interest in the market, and I'm sure you would see that, Peter, in the conversations that you have with people and at conferences. You say things like, ambient listening, AI, those sorts of things, and everybody's sort of head turns and it's the new shiny thing, and we're all very interested in it. But Australia is on a journey. I think that when you look at our healthcare sort of landscape, we have, the big players, the public health hospitals that are probably more ready to take on that type of technology. And even though the interest is strong across the whole market, I think it's really important for us to make sure that before we start offering those sorts of solutions to hospitals and to healthcare systems, we make sure that they're set up for success. So it's not like we go straight from paper to, a fully automated AI system that can do everything for them. There is a journey that they have to go on, and that we need to take them on that and explain to them how that works and why it's important to go on that journey.
And Dennis, you'll be in Australia shortly too. HIC is coming up at the time of this episode being released in August in Melbourne. What are you looking forward to sharing with attendees at HIC during the event?
Yeah, I'm excited to come over. And I mean, first of all, I'm interested to learn from you guys because obviously it's not next door. And I'm really interested in first-hand insights and understanding the pain points. I think it's important to learn about that because that's the place where you can get remedy the easiest way, right? And I'm also interested to understand how it compares to the situation in Europe or LATAM or the other geographies that we have been looking at in the past and where we are very active with our products already. And what I'd like to bring over is that we need to have a shared vision, and the vision should indeed be to move to the structured data world where we use the computer more as a viewer on this like digital twin of the patient that is in the system. And when I say digital twin, I'm not talking the scientific approach that we have currently where you really do complete simulation with all detailed data, but to some extent a patient record is also part of a digital twin. And if we enhance the structured data part, then we move closer, and probably from the top we get the specific, very detailed scientific digital twin stuff. And from our side, from the daily routine and work, we grow to each other and then join one of these days. And we really have a full depiction of the person in a digital way, which will again bring in much more ways and means to improve the experience for everyone in healthcare, so the clinicians and the patients.
Yeah, that is an interesting concept. Actually, I'm going to reflect on that a bit, like taking the concepts or bits of the benefits of digital twin technology, almost like scenario planning or creating like what if. So, yeah, there's some interesting things you could think about there in utilizing the power of all that data, if it exists within EMR, to have some of those benefits of what I guess true digital twin stuff would look like. And yeah, you're right, they would kind of meet somewhere in the middle there. Look, we've talked about some of the interesting emerging technologies and the ways we can apply it there. Lastly, what's your kind of vision for the future? I'll get from both. If you perhaps start with Viti and then anything else from Dennis too. I guess in the say we nail this and we get this right in the structured data side of things, other than being some kind of utopia and no problems to solve and we'll all be out of jobs, what do you see the vision, the benefit, and I guess the purpose of putting the hard yards in now so that we can really reap the benefits later, Viti?
Yeah, look, I really see it as delivering quality and safety benefits for us. Are we making sure that we're using all of this data to make it as safe as possible environment for our patients? We're reducing the workload for our clinicians by making sure that there's seamless sharing of that data across systems. And I'm not just talking about, within clinical systems. I'm talking within, national health records and, labs, imaging, outside the EMR as well. And I think the other thing that's really key is that if we can get it right and we can collect the data we need, it really powers analytics and research that can really make a big difference to how we spend our health dollar and the types of projects that we can engage in finding new treatments and better outcomes for our patients.
Yeah, great. What about you, Dennis?
Yeah, difficult to add.
Yes, good answer.
I just want to emphasize also the life sciences part. So we're looking at real world data. And I think this has the potential to reshape how we do medical research completely. Yeah, we've seen virtual studies coming up. We're now sort of exploring parts of the patient life that were never accessible to medicine. So we only saw the patient when they came to practice or to consultation. But and maybe we sent them home with the 24 hours blood pressure monitoring. Now we see lifelong records with fitness trackers and whatever. And this data is unexplored. So we don't know how it behaves, or let's say largely unexplored. And structured data actually allow us to have a comprehensive and complete view on what is happening and not only sampling every now and then. And I think this is really in for a big revolution also in life science. And the other part is really, I think a lot of the regulations, the procedures, processes, the systems, how they have been set up so far have been set up with the shortcomings of paper and human manual work in mind. So we have a lot of things that actually try to cope with those, let's say, principal error sources and tediousness of working in such an environment, which might no longer be necessary in the future. And that is a big value that we can generate if we do it the right way. And as you said, Viti can redirect it into reduced work effort and also change the setup, how people work together and where they work together.
Yeah. Inspiring vision. Looking forward to chatting more about it, Dennis, in a couple of weeks at HIC in Australia. So make sure you're there. And always a pleasure, Viti. The details for this episode and some links will be in the show notes and in the comments for people to check out. And of course, Dedalus is listing on our website with all the previous episodes we've done in the past too, there to explore. So Dennis, Viti, I really appreciate you making the time. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking Health Tech. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this episode with someone who might find it valuable. For more information and resources about healthcare innovation, visit talkinghealthtech.com.